Hello everybody and welcome back to episode 3 of Redstone Explained. In this episode, we're covering the redstone torch. Roll the intro. Right, so the redstone torch, arguably again, it's one of the fundamentals of redstone. Redstone really couldn't have been built without it, and it was the original logic component. We'll get on to why it was the original logic component in just a second, but without further ado, let's get into the basics of how you can obtain a redstone torch. So, the first way to obtain a redstone torch is to craft it, obviously. So this is the crafting recipe. So if you chuck one stick and one redstone dust into a crafting table in this arrangement, you will get your redstone torch. And these things, this item, it's extremely useful because it's used in a load of other recipes to make other redstone components. Because as you can see in other videos that I've released, repeaters and comparators both have redstone torches as integral parts of their crafting recipe, and therefore these things become more and more important as these things become more and more important. So yeah, they're also used in this activator rail thing, which I don't think anyone really makes use of in Minecraft, but it's used, so I'm including it here. And the only way you can obtain a redstone torch from naturally generating world structures is from an igloo. I don't think anyone's farming those up anytime soon, but it's just a useful tidbit of information. Alright, so before moving on to the redstone applications of a redstone torch, some of the other useful tips or things to know about the torch before you start incorporating into your builds. Number one, you know how regular torches melt ice, like so? A redstone torch doesn't do that. It doesn't have enough power to melt ice, and that's a game mechanic kind of thing, and you'll see the reason why in just a second. Because the second mechanic of redstone torches that's quite interesting is that they are, as the name would suggest, light givers. So if we set the time to night and fly over here, then we take the torch out of our hands, you can see that on F3 we have 7 block light. Can you see the client light value in the F3 screen? That means that this redstone torch is giving off 7 light from itself as a block. Now, an interesting thing to note about that is that 7, the light level of 7 is the bare minimum required to prevent mob spawning. So only the place where you place a redstone torch, as in these 4 blocks where I've placed these torches, they're the only ones which are mob proofed thanks to them. So they're not very good light sources, but they can be used to great effect in dungeons, etc, etc. And yeah, with that out of the way, let's get on to the redstone functionalities of redstone torches. Alright, so the basics of how a redstone torch works. The main functionality, and arguably its most important functionality of a redstone torch, is that it's a power source, meaning that, as you can see here, it will power a redstone line for the required amount, or the standard amount of 15 blocks. So yeah, nothing really special here. So let's move on to the next thing redstone torches can do. So where can redstone torches be placed? So they can be placed, as you can see here, on all the sides of a block and on top of the block. Now these placement places, as in whether they're on the side of the block or on the top of the block, can really affect the way the redstone torch behaves. And as you can see here, I think you can hear my mouse clicking, I can't place it on the bottom of a block. So that's pretty useful to know. However, it's directly related to my next point, which is a lot more useful, and that is that redstone torches, on their sides, they soft power blocks. For a full explanation on soft powering, click the card. Yeah, so they soft power blocks, which means that, as you can see, these pistons, they're redstone components and they're being powered. However, if I replace this with a block and put redstone dust on top, it's not getting powered because this block is not being hard powered. Now, an interesting thing to note is when you put something on top of a redstone torch, like that piston there, it's actually being hard powered, which means that, as you can see, because this block is suddenly getting hard powered by the torch, this redstone dust activates. To demonstrate a little bit better as well, this is how a redstone torch can power stuff. Apart from obviously the horizontal same level power output. Now, one of the most important features a redstone torch has, and arguably the feature that made it the original logic block. See, when you power a redstone torch through a block, as in this setup, it switches off, which means that it has a toggleable output. Now, this is obviously just like you flicked a lever. However, because you can activate this using a redstone input, this suddenly becomes an integral ingredient for loads of contraptions, and it's useful in a lot of gates. However, it's important to note that when you're powering the redstone torch, it has to be through a block, because as you can see, even though this torch is being powered per se, it's not switching off because it's not through a block. However, because this one is through a block, it can be powered and depowered with a redstone input. Now, a very cool feature that I found out really by accident while researching for this video is that as you can see, a redstone torch is obviously by default is always on. Now, when you give it an input, it switches off. Now, what my question was is what if you give it the same input that it is outputting? As in, what if I take power from this on redstone torch and circuit it back into the same torch? So we'll see what happens in a minute. So as you can see here, it starts off as a clock. It's a really fast redstone clock, just like the comparator clock shown here. As you can see, this clock and the redstone torch have around about the same operational frequency, as in they put out the same amount of pulses per second. But the cool thing about the torch is, after a certain amount of time, it burns out. So I'll switch my Minecraft sounds up for this. So listen carefully. Did you hear that? The sound of fire being extinguished. And that's because redstone torches have a burnout time. That means if this kind of clock is going on for more than 60 ticks, I'm pretty sure, if it's more than 60 ticks, then the torch burns out and you get this kind of dead circuit, which is very cool and could be used to great advantage in your redstone contraptions for, let's say, a clock you only want to run for a certain amount of time. Because as you can see, let's say I run a repeater into this and do a bit of that. Just for the sake of argument, let me set this up. Okay, it's fully set up, and now if I want this torch to run the clock for however long it's supposed to, I activate this piston, it runs the clock, which obviously it does get slowed down a little bit by this repeater, but I'm sure there are other ways of hooking this up which aren't made in 5 seconds, which would obviously keep the torch on. But as you can see, you can keep the torch clock running for however long it needs to be running, or that specific amount of time, and then switch it off when you pull back this piston. So again, I put the piston into the circuit and the torch burns out. I take the piston out, this circuit will eventually reset, as you can see there. And then when I need to use the clock again, I put the piston back into the circuit. Like so. So that's a very cool thing I found out about redstone torches. And on to the next part. And lastly, I don't really think any redstone torch video can be complete without mentioning the most archaic use and arguably the most nostalgic use for all you redstoners out there of redstone torches, which is the redstone torch tower. This was made way back when Minecraft first had redstone torches introduced into the game, and it was a way of transmitting signals vertically through a 1x1 by however high you need to go space. Now obviously there are some limitations to this because you can't have a redstone line running adjacent to any of these torches or it'll get messed up. So if you do want to see some ways to transmit signals vertically and not have any signals messed up, check out the video in the card. I should have released it by then and it has all you'll need to know. But yeah, these torch towers, the way they work is, as you can see, this redstone torch, as I explained earlier, hard powers this block. Now this block hard powers this redstone torch, which switches it off, which means that this doesn't get affected at all, which keeps this redstone torch on, which hard powers this block, which switches this off again and again and again, all the way up to wherever you need this input to go. Now when you switch this torch off, i.e. when you power this first torch, you're switching this torch off, which means that this torch no longer is affected, which switches it on, which means that this torch gets affected, which switches it off, which makes this affected, and etc, which transmits the signal upwards. So now I can use an input from way down here to activate that piston all the way up there. And yeah, I think that is the last use I can come up with, or the last interesting bit of information I can come up with about the redstone torch. So if you like this video, please make sure to subscribe, leave a like, comment, share, do all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye! Also, if you watched this far, you probably really like this video, or you're asleep. Either way, if you liked this video a lot, check out the other videos in the series. They're very cool. Bye!